Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Oculus and Facebook, for inviting us over. I'm just in general super stoked to be in this industry where so much is still to be done. And yeah, just like thanks for having us. Thanks for getting us over. I'm Sara, I'm from Berlin, Germany, and I'm developing and also engaging with a community of developers since the Rift DK1. And since around over a year, I'm setting up VRBASE with my co-founder Dan Kipp from Amsterdam. And VRBASE is a network of physical VR/AR incubators. And we have hubs throughout Europe where we engage with the community. And for example, this one over here, I brought you a video of a recent game jam we had in our space in Berlin, where the Oculus Medium team came over, and we had 35 creators, and there were 7 experiences coming out after a 40-hour jam. So that was in our Berlin space, and in both, like in Amsterdam and Germany, where we have our first bases, the scene is really, really lively and active, and there's so much already been done. You can see here the Netherlands VR landscape, and also our German industry. But also, there's still so much to be done. So there are new startups coming up every month. So many new people are joining the industry. And all of the people that get into VR see and discover new aspects that really will bring this medium further. They're all from different backgrounds. They're like from journalism or film, from theater, architecture, games, animation, broadcasting, design, art. And we can benefit from all of that, from all those diverse big backgrounds and all that knowledge that has been there already. So we really have the chance now to write on this blank page and to define this powerful medium. So this importance of exchange and collaboration in this early stage industry is enormous. And the advantages of developers that really unite and build networks of exchange, trust, and quality work are beyond all measures. So we really grow by learning from one another in this new field. And I'm really excited today to have these amazing folks over here that are all pushing forward to unite developers in their own countries with various initiatives. And we want to explore together what it actually needs to connect over borders and to define this new medium that is made to unite the world. So I'm really happy today to be here with first Judith Okonkwo. So Judith is talking about what she enables with the Ìmísí 3D Creation Lab. I really love the name. I just looked it up before, and it's Nigerian for breath and inspiration. So we also have Roberto Romero here, and he's from Future Lighthouse and will give us some insights how he engages with the community of developers in Spain. And then we have Nausharwan from Psychic VR Lab, and he develops a new and innovative VR distribution platform for the global market. Very excited to be here with you all, and I would like you to talk a little bit about what you're working on.
Thank you very much, Sara. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so glad to be able to share a little bit of what we're doing in Nigeria with you. As Sara has mentioned, I run a creation lab called Ìmísí 3D. It's a Yoruba word for inspiration. And we are focused on building the extended reality ecosystem in Nigeria. So we're trying to get people to engage all across the value chain. And in a place like Nigeria, it means starting from scratch to build developer communities. It means getting people who want to play in the hardware space. It also means helping organizations understand what they might be able to do with these technologies. I'd like to show you a little bit about what life looks like in the lab in Lagos.
Thanks. So, Roberto.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So in Spain we have a great community, and I try to explain you that understand how big is it and how many projects we are doing in Spain. And I work at Future Lighthouse. Future Lighthouse is a narrative and interactive studio. We make entertainment content. But we have a great ecosystem of companies there in Spain about gaming. For example, in Spain is Tequila Works that's launched recently, the Invisible Hours, or another companies like Studio Future that is distributing globally a VR game. There is cinema companies and health companies. There is a lot of companies, of course, marketing and health and every field is covered by companies in Spain. And we have a great open community with a great mindset of sharing knowledge and interact between us. We make a lot of events there. I know about 62 or 65 companies right now in Spain. Big companies in one hand and small studios in another hand, and it's very nice to tell you about us here.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, this is Nausharwan from Psychic VR Lab. It's a pleasure to be over here. And what we are developing our service is we believe in the build and share. So we are focusing that whatever you build, it should be shared with it globally. So we created the distribution platform in whatever you create, just import in our distribution platform, which is compatible with the all device. And we also provide the drag and drop editor. So non-technical people, non-coding can use that software. And from that, you can distribute in our platform where we have tons of users across the world, starting from Japan, US. So it's very important that whatever you create in VR, it should be shared with the people. So here we see how it works.
Great. So as you can see already, that our panelists are really reflecting what's going on in VR, how they push this industry forward. And it's also sometimes really complicated, right? It's diverse, it's complicated, it's challenging. And so my first question would be, what's actually your experience with VR developers in your countries? And also, what challenges are you facing?
So I'll speak to the Nigerian scene right now. And what we have is really VR in its infancy. So a lot of people don't typically associate VR and Nigeria together. We have now a growing community of software developers that are rapidly gaining global prominence. And that's where we're tapping into to grow the VR content creation community. But it's a bit tough. You know, the cost of VR, it's falling rapidly, but it's still a bit prohibitive for the majority of the population there. And that's one of the things that drove us to set up the lab, because we wanted there to be a space where people could come in and engage with the technology, you know, regardless of their purchasing power, and find out more about it if they wanted to. But we have people that are very excited. in lots of different areas. So people are curious about creating content. People are interested in the hardware as well. They want to know if they can, you know, create headsets there. And I think that will give us more access to the local market. People are also very interested in ways they can adopt the technology to actually address challenges locally. So that's everything from education to healthcare, you know, even looking at things like tourism and trying to get, you know, Nigeria more prominence globally. So it varies quite a bit.
So in Spain, Spaniards are very talented and very creative people. We are creating a very big project there, and we have a very talented people there. The limitations right now is that in Europe there is there are not enough VR support at this time. I think we are looking outside Spain for investors and from hardware support and from support from the big players in the industry. We are trying to reach the US market and the other markets and work in Europe with a lot of different players, but we are together, and at this time we think really we are not competitors. We need to help to each other in the community, and we have many tools about social media and applications to communicate every day with the other studios to help us to solve problems, to deliver awesome content. And we are very open community, as I said. We don't fear about to share tools, to share code, and to help any others in any moments, including you are in the middle of a big production. You have time to help to each other, and it's really cool.
Exactly, that's a very good point you mentioned. It's just like we are all in this together right now, right?
Exactly.
We all wanted to succeed. Yeah.
Exactly, and if you talk about like Japan, as you guys know that Japan is the second largest VR industry, covering around like 12% of the VR industry, having like 11 billion market cap. But the problem of like Japan is like, if you talk about like education side, Japan, gaming side, healthcare, everywhere like people are using the VR, especially for the education side. People use the VR for the training, and like if I give the example of the Honda Motors, they are giving their training how to build the cars in the VR so that they can save the time and the cost, and it is more effective and efficient. And if you talk about like games, in every city, there's a game center over there, and there's always like VR attraction. But Japan is like really facing participate in global community due to the language and the culture. So I think so that is one of the main problem right now Japan is facing. So yeah, I think so that should be like overcome, because everyone used to play the Mario, Japanese Final Fantasy from childhood.
It's also that, like it's never been there in history, right? That like we have the chance to actually define this medium so diverse with so much input, as you said, like all the social media tools and so on. So next question would be like, really, does the spread of VR technology allow us to build a more inclusive medium? And how does it?
For me, everything starts in education. Is the main the main place we need to put the VR to build great tools to implement in education, because this is the start of everything, no? The young people can use these powerful tools to learn and to share in social VR platforms and connect with other people in globally, no? in the rest of the world. That's so important.
How do you see that, Judith?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Roberto. I think that for us in Nigeria, that's one thing we're seeing. When it comes to education, I think like many other places, we actually have a crisis, to put it mildly. over 11 million children in Nigeria out of school, for example, which is the highest number for any one country. And the gap in terms of those who have access to quality education and those who don't is quite wide. But I think that VR is something that can start to transcend that. So, for example, we're piloting a VR for School projects where we go into secondary schools, and you take a low-cost VR headset, a mobile phone, mobile broadband, and a solar portable, and that way you're able to provide a learning kit that they can use. And I think with that, you then start to bridge the gap so that more people have access to quality education, and I think that's really pushing inclusiveness. I mean, of course, the challenge then is we then have to have people who will create locally relevant content that we can use. But
exactly, I pretty agree with you, both of you guys, that education is the main sector, right? Until we don't educate them, they won't bring the content into the global market. And in that regard, we are also working really hard in the Japan side, and we targeted around 10,000 students in the Japan university across the country that you should learn about VR technology, and all are not really technical people. So our platform is also providing the non-coding side. So we are trying to enhance those things.
Yeah. And given those barriers we discussed, given those issues or challenges, how can we work to overcome them? What support do we need to overcome those barriers?
For cost, the cost is one of the best barriers right now with VR. No? We need more cheap hardware to spread the hardware across the universities or the high schools, and of course for the final users in their homes. We need to implement as soon as possible deploy the hardware in every place. But the hardware without content, that not make sense. Not? We need to create a powerful and we need to create a powerful application, but we need to create necessity in the people to use VR.
Yeah, exactly. I pretty agree. In Japan, that is an IT industry. If you talk about normal person, even a normal person cannot use the laptop or computer. The lack of knowledge regarding the IT is pretty high in Japan. So I think we should start educate the VR with very easy steps rather than go for high contents. So Japan is really having a pretty problem in the IT sector as compared to the globally, because I travel across the world, US, Europe, and the India country, but everyone can use the laptop, right? But it's very simple. If you talk about Japan, people really fear from it, oh, I cannot use it. It's just a simple MacBook, right?
Yeah, of course. Also, funding is so important for the companies. Everyone here are looking for funding, no? To make grow their companies, and this is so important to share a great funding network around the world with each other.
True.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree as well. So. For us, it's about education as well, getting more people to have access to learning to create, to know more about these technologies, and certainly funding and even access to equipment, I think, is also something we need to overcome.
Yeah. Given those points, when you say to overcome the barriers, we also need money, of course, right? So given that, are we actually asking the wrong questions about global VR? Because should we maybe begin by finding the needs of this various community and then build VR around that need? Or should we just begin with commercial applications, and then that generates revenue, so this leads to further resources?
Yeah, for me is what people needs or what people want right now for VR. What's expected about VR creating? People want entertainment application, or are people looking for connect with each other around the world? With social applications, no? Or we need to ask what kind of content we need to make, no? For the audience right now. This is not the same in this time or in 3 years, because the market evolves and we need to evolve with the market.
Yeah.
No, it's so important.
Yeah, exactly. I pretty agree with you, Roberto, on this aspect.
Yeah, I would say that one thing is if we can increase access to the technology, then people can start to determine what they need, as opposed to going one way or the other. Because I think the more people that are able to play in the space and create, they can then determine, do they want to address challenges? Do they want to educate people? Do they want to create entertainment? But I believe people should be able to determine.
Yeah, so it's really the accessibility that is the biggest barrier right now. Yeah.
Also, it's important the difference between the content for globally, the universal content that
universal
we
content,
were talking before, and the local content that every community needs. No?
Also, in that sense, have you seen VR reach the intended audiences and what works?
For you.
Well, one thing I can say is, it might not always be about intended audiences. So, for example, in a place like Kenya, what has started to happen is that people are starting to use generic VR headsets to watch movies, because previously they used to watch those movies on their smartphones, and now they have, access to these headsets, which gives them a better viewing experience. So I think there's something about both intended and unintended audiences that can then be a stepping stone into engaging with the technology.
Yeah, of course, the best market right now globally is the gaming market, no?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you talk about like an audience, I'm living in Tokyo, and I see that everyone know about like AVR, AR stuff, and everyone already have experience in terms of like if you talk about education or gaming or in their field. So it's pretty common over there, so everyone already know about it. In Japan side, I think so.
Yeah, and what do you think, what do we need more of to grow the VR audience?
I believe, I was just talking with Roberto just, before this session, that we should, bring the universal contents across the border, because, there is some limitation. If you talk about Japan, there are a bunch of very good contents, starting with gaming of Mario, Final Fantasy, but there are also great contents in US, Europe, Africa side, right? So we should bring those universal contents across the board and share those contents. I think so that is a very important factor.
But how is it? European content is very different from Japanese content and from African content.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Is VR content actually possible to cross borders? Is European content reaching Japan and vice versa?
Yeah, according to me, there are always some universal content and the cultural content, right? So if you talk about Japan, there are some cultural games in Japan, which is definitely, I'm pretty sure that no one will play outside the Japan. But if you talk about Nintendo Mario, everyone loves Mario, right? Even the Marios came from the Italian, right? Or if you talk about Disney, right? It's all around the world, and it's started with the US side, right? So there are a few contents which is universal, and I think so we should start to exchange those IPs. Yeah, that is a good start to connect the world.
That's right. We need to use the technology to connect people around the world. We need to find the right path, no? for the tools that we are using every day. And universal content is about that, no? Content for everyone, content thinking for the global market.
But if you say that the content is done already for the global market, is it then on the publishers to go there, or is it on the creators? Who is enabling us to actually go global?
I think it will vary, right? I think that it will depend on the platforms that are available. So when I think to the work that Mary is doing, with Styly, that then gives more people access. You can tap into it globally, you can experience it globally as well. And I think that one thing, just playing to the points Roberto and Mer have made, we've seen a lot of crossover culturally with things like movies, with music. So I don't think that we'll have, severe restrictions when it comes to something like VR. If you even just think to kind of human need to explore and experience different things in different cultures, then that's something that VR actually enables in a pretty powerful way.
Yeah, we need interesting content. Also, we need to put in public spaces VR devices to get the opportunity to the people know VR. Right now, people doesn't know VR.
Yeah, exactly, and right now we are living in the global village, so everything is like on the board, and everyone like enjoy the different culture, right? So.
Yeah.
And which initiatives are there that actually help us to go global? Like which initiatives are you, for example, running that help us to actually connect globally?
So, for example, in Nigeria, we've started to partner with and collaborate with different AR/VR communities across the region. We've done that with people in Cameroon. We're starting to do that with people in Tunisia and in Egypt and in South Africa. So I think that kind of work then allows us to collaborate and think about ways we can do that across, across continents even as a start.
Yeah. Some companies in Spain are starting to work with the government to make educational content, or for example, private companies like VR Edu are working specifically in education. So there are some universities that are integrating specific VR programs to teach the
I
people.
heard also Facebook is helping you, right?
Yeah, of course. Recently, we offer us to manage the Facebook developer circles in the Madrid hub to put together all the developers community here there in Spain, and it's awesome because we need the support from the big companies to get all the necessary the place, the peers, and everything to make stronger relationships with
the community, right? To also enable new people, get new people in.
Exactly, because like what we are focusing in with our platform is like we are focusing on compatible with the all devices, because if you talk about like Japan, 70 to 80% major share is like the iPhone. It's not really Android. So mobile VR is really having a difficult time over there. So it's depend on the country. If you talk about Africa, Europe, Japan, every VR device is like different. So therefore we are focusing that how to build the global community. Is that first we have to support all devices whatever you created, rather than focusing on one device, each device, because every country have a different device. So we are trying to focus the community where you can just build and share with the world, so that you can talk, and especially the art and the design. I think so. It itself have a language, rather than you have to communicate with the words. So.
Yeah.
And also what you're doing with your tool is like in general like cutting the cost for the VR development, right?
Exactly.
Like you're making it easier for people to actually distribute it.
Yeah.
So the interesting part is there, like, do we need less funding in the future? Will it be cheaper to actually develop VR experiences for us?
Yeah, exactly. In that regard, Roberto was just mentioning about the funding side. So normally it takes like a couple of months for you to expand, release your content. But in our platform, it just takes 2 minutes for just you have to push the publish button. So those countries or those ventures, it's facing facing a problem in terms of finance or the cost. I think so that would be a good start, and especially the education side, because student cannot afford that much money and that much time. So.
There we are again at the accessibility.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you see funding happening in Africa?
I have to say that that's tough. I find that a lot of funding in this industry is limited to North America and Europe. So I think that's something that we'd really like to see change.
Yeah. Speaking of Europe, that's also an initiative that we do with VRBASE. We're raising a fund for VR and AR in Europe to actually really enable and unfold this European creativity. Like there is so much there, like there's a whole ecosystem, but as you also pointed it out, we always have to go to the US or to Japan to actually get funding. Like, I mean, American and Japanese investors are the biggest one in the VR AR industry, right? So we're really looking forward to actually also get going, and also that we can connect more, right? So that we can actually go forward and connect globally. To do that, we actually have a little plan about doing a XR Global Facebook group where we want to also encourage everyone here who is engaging with communities, who is a community leader themselves, to join us and to connect globally, to exchange those learnings that we have from all of our different countries. To really push this forward, to exchange like all of those things we heard in terms of funding everything in terms of accessibility, in terms of like for you, it's just internet is one of the basic needs, you know, like all of those things, all of those barriers and restriction, and each one's ways to overcome them, so that we can really learn from each other how to overcome the barriers, to connect globally, to make this medium a really meaningful medium with meaningful content. So yeah, that's basically.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's important to open the mind of the people in the community to do open relationships with the entire global community. So open innovation really works in the world when we put all our minds together. In the same place, we can push the limit, no, of the market, and helps to this growth, no, of the VR market globally.
Yeah, and as Sara mentioned that Japan is the one of biggest investor, and a few companies are really investing in the global VR companies. So what I always looking in the Japan market, and I'm traveling to the US a lot. Every month I'm in US. And I see that a lot of Japanese companies want to expand their IP, especially the Nintendo one or Sega. Sega already have one small game center, and there's one game center called Shinjuku VR Zone. It's consisting 16 attraction of VR, including high IP of the Dragon Ball, the anime, Mario, the Mario Kart. So there are tons of great IPs in Japan, but they are really facing a problem due to the language and the culture. So I think it's a big opportunity for European and the global VR community
to create a strong network.
Yeah, exactly. Because already those IPs are familiar all around the world. You don't need to do any kind of thing. Just you have to put that IP, and it's in the market. So there are huge opportunities in terms of IP and also the investment side. So just a main problem is the culture and the language. But pretty, I'm sure that
Yeah, of course, and we need to miss the fear to share knowledge, to share network contacts, or to share anything that can help to another communities to grow, because VR market is too small right now, and will be very big. I have no doubt in the next 3 to 5 years will be a very stronger market. But right now it's very small, it's fragile, and we need to push together to make bigger and stronger.
Yeah,
it's our duty.
I completely agree. I think I'm very excited to have met my fellow panelists, because I know that there's much we can learn from each other, and certainly for us, really being in our infancy, there's much that we can do in terms of knowledge sharing.
Yes, that was also something for me that was so special. I just you're now my new friends, and we just got together through this panel, and we now have the chance to really already we exchanged the last days already. There's so much powerful things where we can help each other in each other's countries to really make things happen. Yeah, that's also something I'm really stoked about, and I love that you're saying that we should lose the fear of actually to exchange. That's a really important one. Sharing is caring, and we all want this industry to succeed, right?
Yeah.
As we're building global communities, and as we want you to engage also in our new Facebook group with the Global XR group. So is there anyone here who wants to join us and who wants to help push this forward? Yay, that's amazing. And also, if you want to just join the conversation, we want to open it up to question and answers from the audience.